special event tonight. We've got Susan Gertlich here talking about guerrilla skeptics and a lot of other things. Now, briefly, I met Susan 2 years ago in Las Vegas. She's become a reasonably close friend in that time. I don't say that about a lot of people. I'm a very solitary and alienating type. I won't actually try to sum you up in
Okay,
in
I'm dying to hear this. I'm recording it too.
I won't sum you up in skeptic words. I'll say what Rupert Sheldrake has to say about you. Now, Rupert Sheldrake is the well-known paranormal exponent and advocate, and he was very annoyed that these nasty militant skeptics have been, getting him taken off the TEDx website, and that they have unkind things to say on his Wikipedia page. He says that summer, after the TED controversy, a commando squad of skeptics captured the Wikipedia page about me. They have occupied and controlled it ever since, rewriting my biography with as much negative bias as possible, to the point of defamation. Yet he hasn't sued, apparently. At the beginning of the talk page, on which an editorial changes are discussed, they posted a warning to editors who do not share their biases. A common objection made by new arrivals is the article presents Sheldrake's work in an unsympathetic light, and the criticisms of it is too extensive or violates the neutral point policy. Several new arrivals have attempted to restore a more balanced picture, but we have had a bewildering variety of rules thrown at them and warned they will be banned if they persist in opposing the skeptics. And on he goes. He says the guerrilla skeptics are well-trained, highly motivated, have an ideological agenda, and operate in teams contrary to Wikipedia rules. The mastermind behind this organisation is Susan Gertlich, with a K. He spells the name with a K, yeah. So he's a bit loose with some of the facts, isn't he? Yeah. She explains how her teams work in training videos and now has over 90 guerrillas operating in 17 different languages. As the guerrilla skeptics are demonstrating, Wikipedia can easily be subverted by determined groups of activists, despite its well-intentioned policies and mediation procedures. Perhaps, we need something like the UN peacekeeping force to try and re-establish a neutral point of view. So, it's like Lebanon now, thanks. But this will not help in cases where there are no editors to oppose the guerrilla skeptics or where they have been silenced. If nothing is done, Wikipedia will lose credibility and its financial backers will withdraw their support. I hope the noble aims of Wikipedia will prevail. Okay, so let's... Perhaps Susan's going to fill us in with a bit of a backstory on the guerrilla skeptics of Wikipedia and some other skeptical activism that you've been involved in. Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you, Chris. I didn't know what he was going to say, so that's pretty interesting. So, yeah, Rupert and Deepak, they don't like me too much. But we could get into that in a few minutes. So, I am Susan Gertlich, and how many here have an idea of what it is I'm going to be talking about? I mean, you know what the GSoW project is, and there's several people. Okay, good. So you have some idea. Okay, so, we're obviously involved in Wikipedia, editing Wikipedia. So about 4 years ago, I started this group based on something that Tim Farley had said that we should probably be taking care of Wikipedia, because this is where people get their information. We all know that, right? So I don't have to have that conversation with you guys. So we tried a lot of different things, and it turns out that I'm pretty good at training. And the reason why I'm really pretty good at training is because I have no technical skills really that much. And a lot of Wikipedia editors, they're trying to, they speak in this kind of gobbledygooky, nerdy language, and they cite policies, and they do these things, and I don't know any of that. So when I edit and when I train just like I'm talking to just somebody who doesn't have a clue either. So we put together this team. We are now about 75 people, more or less, and we have, we're all volunteers, nobody's paid, and we have a forum where we have these conversations about how to have the Wikipedia pages improved and so on. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, I believe you had someone come here, Amanda, talk to you about the Brzezinski Clinic, right? Do you guys remember that? So I'm going to use that as an example, and I have lots of other things I can use as examples, but I decided I'm going to use the Brzezinski Clinic because it's one of my favorites. This is a Wikipedia page that we did not write in English, but we have been kind of maintaining it and updating it and keeping it in great shape. So I'm going to talk about that. You're going to see a bunch of slides come up here with a lot of words on it. Ignore it. Do not sit there and try to read it because it's just is an example. I'm trying to show it to you just as an example. You can go home and read the Brzezinski Clinic Wikipedia page or on your phone or whatever later. And so, so the Brzezinski Clinic is a reminder to you all. It is a cancer clinic in Texas, in America. And he says that he has found this magic, that is going to cure all cancers and so on, and he charges exorbitant fees, and they say they have a rate of maybe 70-something% of cures, and I think it's more like 0.02 or something like that. So he's getting a lot of very desperate people coming in to get treatment in this clinic, and trying to and milking them, to be honest with you, because the insurance never covers this. So I'm an activist. I'm the type that wants to go do something. I'm not just the type that's just like, oh, that's nice. Okay, wow, that's bad. We don't like that. I'm more of like, okay, so what can I do with that information? So the Brzezinski Clinic has a Wikipedia page, and there it is. So again, don't sit here and read this. Stanislaw Brzezinski. You see, he has anti-neoplastines. He says it's not chemotherapy, but we know it is chemotherapy. And so this is the lead you're looking at right up here. We know that people go to Wikipedia, and we know that that's probably all we're going to read. It's just these first little bits right here. So it's extremely important that in that lead, we have some really good information, because people are going to pop in, read it, and go, oh, he's a quack, okay, I'm out of here. Very few people are going to go all the way through the article and read everything. That's just kind of how we are in the society we are now, with the just 30-second bite kind of thing is anything anybody's interested in. So the lead is extremely important. On this lead, it says that it's unproven cancer treatment. We also say that it's chemotherapy, and we make sure that it says that on the page, because that's one of the things that they are very adamant about saying, is that they don't do chemotherapy. A lot of people are really turned off on chemotherapy. And chemotherapy is one of those words, the C word, that people don't want to hear. So we also make sure that it's got a skeptic's view on here. I mean, it's got all the citations that show that let me see, here it is. Okay, so this is what I was just talking about. Okay, so here we go. The clinic has been a focus of criticism primarily due to the way its anti-neoplastin therapy is promoted, the cost for the cancer patients, participating in trials when trials are really supposed to be free, and then so people have problems with this. So all this is written at the very beginning of the page, because we want to make sure that people are getting their information. Also, we have on here, additionally, there's no accepted scientific evidence of clinical efficacy of anti-neoplastin combinations for various diseases. In other words, it doesn't work. There's no evidence that it works. So this is my slide on homeopathy. All right. So we know that this is not going to change people's minds. We know that people are not going to go to the Wikipedia page and suddenly a light's going to go off and go, oh my gosh, this guy's a quack. I think I'm going to turn around and go, away. But we do know that a lot of people's minds are changed because they're looking for some kind of alternatives. They're desperate. They're it's their child. They're willing to do anything, pay any sum of money, and anybody who's willing to give you any kind of hope, they're looking for. So we hope that people are coming in and looking at the page and turning around and leaving. We think that's what's happening, but we can't be sure. But we do know that people are visiting the Wikipedia page. We also know that we want to be able to educate people, not only the people who have had this diagnosis of brain tumors or whatever, because we also need to educate the politicians, the media, because a lot of the media gives them just a free ride. They'll say, oh, he's cured cancer, so let's give him a front page, kind of thing. So we also know that the community, it's a good idea to make sure the community knows what's going on with Brzezinski, because the community is always asked to pay the bill because, spaghetti fundraisers and stuff like that. So here's what the views look like. And this is in 2012, in December of 2012. The English page was receiving about 17,607 views. That's an awful lot of people who are going to a Wikipedia page to learn about a cancer clinic. So we know that we're really making a difference. And we think that the numbers are actually starting to drop, and his popularity is going away, because in 2015, in the last month that I looked at, which was August, he's only getting 3,000 views. So 3,000 views compared to the 17,000 views is a big difference. So we think that his notoriety is going away. So we, in GSoW, the Guerrilla Skepticism and Wikipedia team, we have a team of people, and Monica's here from our Spanish team. There she is. Hi, Monica. And we've written this Wikipedia page in other languages, because one of the things that we do is that it's Wikipedia and educating the world is far too important to just concentrate on English. The general Wikipedia editor that you would find on Wikipedia is not able to communicate with the Italians or the Spanish or the Russians or the Sanskrit, the Sanskrit or the anything like that. They don't have a way of connecting with those people easily, but we can, because of the way our forum's set up. Our editors are all set up so that they have access to all the different languages, and we constantly will find a page, write it really well in a certain language, the native language, in this case it's English, and then we'll translate it over into other languages. The Italian page, we really wanted to make sure we had that done because of this guy. Do you remember him? Fabio. It's not butter. So this is Fabio. His sister, actually, Fabio was a representative of the American Cancer Society, believe it or not. And his sister had some very late stage cancer. And so he took her to the Brzezinski clinic. Would you believe they charged him? I don't think here's what he looks like now, just in case you didn't know. Just leave you with that. But
did he have the treatment?
Yeah, no, he didn't. But his sister, I don't think she got the treatment, and she ended up dying. So we wanted to make sure that the Wikipedia page in Italian was written because of the fact that his sister was involved and Fabio was involved, and that it's possible that people might be, looking into that treatment for their family. We feel that it's really, really important that the page is written in the language, the native language, because people, they're looking for help. They're desperate, like I said. And Brzezinski actually attracts people from all over the world. And we think that it's, if all possible, to get the information out there written in the language that they would be reading, so that we can give them the best information. Instead of trying to find an English page and then they have to translate it, and then, things are lost in translation. But like this page right here, this is our Dutch page. And then we've also translated into Portuguese. And then this one I'm very proud of, because the person who wrote this translated it for us. It's Polish, and just gave us the text. And one of my editors, who does not speak Polish or any other language other than English, maybe he speaks Klingon, but he doesn't have any other training of any other languages, but he figured out how to do it, and he made the code so that he was able to make this page and put it into Polish. And Polish is really important that we get it in Polish because Brzezinski's Polish. So we felt it was very strong that we had to have the page in Polish. So now the Brzezinski page in Polish last month had 673 views. So that surprised me quite a bit. Another thing we have on the Wikipedia page, oh, there it is, the Brzezinski page, 673. One of the other things we have on this page is the patient group for Bob Blaskowitz. I don't know if you know who he is, maybe when you had the lecture last time. He's the man who's really been working on getting rid of, bringing it to the attention of the media and the Brzezinski Clinic. And his website, the other Brzezinski patient group, is listed on the Wikipedia page. So we wanted to make sure we had that so people could get a lot of information. So I'm going to show you one more thing really quick. And not that. Here we go. Okay. So another thing I'm going to show you is, oh, I guess I have to hit this button down here. You guys are all mentally just slide sorter, or we should go slideshow. Okay. So one of the things that we do when I train, this is something that I came up with. Again, I didn't know what I was doing, so we had creative ways of finding things to make things happen. So I came up with this idea called backwards editing. A normal Wikipedia editor is going to go to a Wikipedia page and they're going to look for citations. They're going to say, I want to improve the Wikipedia page, or I want to write a Wikipedia page for a certain person or a topic or whatever. Or maybe they have a page and it's kind of a stub, it's really short, and they're trying to find citations for that. That's a lot more work. It's a lot more difficult to do that because you have to find these citations, and it's very time consuming, as Monica can tell you. It could take you a month to write a really good Wikipedia page, well researched, and find all the citations. If it's something older, maybe a scientist who's maybe was active in the 1950s or 60s, something like that, that's even harder because the citations don't exist online. It's much more difficult to try to write a page for somebody who's active many years ago. But what I did is I came up with this idea called backwards editing. And what that means is you take a citation, this is full of citations right here. And these things, what I'm going to tell you right now, you can actually do at home. You can do this from home. You could find yourself a citation of any kind of article that you want, and you'll find these things. You need to come find something from a notable source. This is an edited magazine. This is the first time I'm looking at this myself. So, oh, there's that picture. We just wrote a Wikipedia page for her. Loretta Marin. It's been out Marin. It's been out like 5 days. Wonderful, amazing woman. I'm really, really excited about meeting her. And there's her picture. So we could take this article, which I haven't read. You could take this article and you could turn around and you could quote it on a Wikipedia page because it's coming from a citation. So what I'm trying to say is, here's Skeptical Inquirer magazine. I hope you guys all are subscribed to Skeptical Inquirer, or at least go to the website. This has tons of different citations in here too. When I travel on a plane or something like that and I don't have Wi-Fi, one of the things I'll do is I'll start reading through the articles. Here's one on the future of the Center for Inquiry. So you read it through, you read the Wikipedia page, and you go, okay, let's see. We can update it by adding all these things and these things and these things, and you cite this article. So in a nutshell, a Wikipedia backwards edit is anything you might not have even heard of the page before. So you're going to get a variety of things that you're able to edit. So I'm going to show you one really quick because it's getting close to Halloween. I understand Halloween is not a big deal here in Australia, but it's getting to be more popular. Is that right? So this is a poltergeist. You guys know what a poltergeist are? This is a story. Well, yeah. Well, you have. So Ben Radford. Anybody here know who Ben Radford is? He's a very prolific investigator, paranormal investigator, akin to Joe Nickell, who will be at the Skeptic Conference coming up here really soon. So Ben Radford's a good friend of mine, and he went to the Bell Witch Cave. This is in Tennessee. So he wrote to me and he said, "Hey, Susan, I wrote an article for Skeptical Inquirer magazine about the Bell Witch, and I just visited the place, and I took a nice photo and everything." And he says, "I looked at the Wikipedia article, and it's not very skeptical. It's very, paranormal heavy." So I said, "Well, what do you got there, Ben?" So he sent me an article. I'd never heard of the Bell Witch. Out of the Skeptical Inquirer, or whatever magazine. He sent me the online link so I could look at it. And I pulled it up and I started reading it. And then I read the Wikipedia page for the Bell Witch, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this is just nonsense. It's just all who knows what." So what I did, here's the Bell Witch. And you don't need to know the story. If you're interested, you can look it up. It's the Bell Witch. It's easy to remember. But it had really nothing on it. And Brian Dunning from the Skeptoid podcast, who's also a good friend of mine, and Ben Radford and Joe Nickel had all written articles about the Bell Witch, but they weren't on the Wikipedia page. So what I did is, here's some of the things. You can look at that. Ghostwriters based their writings on a book that was written 70 years after the event. Even after that book was written, it was based on a never-seen book that was made from the memories of a 30-year-old man's childhood memories. It's just ridiculous. So Ben Radford, as well as Brian Dunning, had, Andrew Jackson, he was a president of the United States, had visited the Bell House. That was what was on the old Wikipedia page. And nowhere, once Brian Dunning started investigating, he found out that, no, Andrew Jackson did not visit the Bell Witch. And Andrew Jackson had as you can see here, this is one of the things that's on the page now, is that if Andrew Jackson had visited the page and been scared away by the witch, then his opponent would have been all over the thing, and it would have been all over the papers and everything. And it wasn't, so he never did go. And then, so here's some of the things. This is what I was able to put on the Wikipedia page from Ben Radford. I'll let you read that over for a second. So now this is currently on the Wikipedia page for the Bell Witch. That's Ben Radford. And then Brian Dunning. I should just sum that up. He's saying that the Bell Witch is nothing more than just unsubstantiated folk legends. It's embellished, popularized by an opportunistic author of historical fiction. So, and then one more. So here's Joe Nickel. He's saying that it sounds suspiciously like the example of a poltergeist faking syndrome, in which someone, typically a child, causes the mischief. So here's the Wikipedia page views for the Bell Witch that you'd never heard of. And this is 6,560 views. This is in August of 2015. And I think I have another slide too. And then in October, right at Halloween, look how these stats go up. 12,000 views. So it's real important for us in the skeptical community to make sure that these Wikipedia pages are really well written, because people are actually accessing them and reading the story. So to have a Wikipedia page about something you've never heard of, the Bell Witch, have a bunch of nonsense on it, make it sound like, poltergeists exist and, all this other garbage on there. It's real important that we have these pages in great shape. So let me see that other side. Okay, another homeopathy page. So one of the other things that we do on our project is we try to work on pages for people who are our skeptical spokespersons. And we find that it's really important that when somebody's in the media's eye, we know that what's going to happen is they're going to get Googled, and they're going to get the Wikipedia link probably first. And it's a really good idea that the page looks well written, respectable, photos, audio, if we can put audio on there. We've done so many different pages, tons and tons of different pages that we've done on different people in our skeptical world. We want to make sure that they look good, they read well, and we don't want to put gossip and that kind of stuff on it, but we want it to be more than just a dry academic like a CV. We don't want it to look like it's just the resume. We want to have it flow, like with early life, with their influences. Why do they go into science? Why is this important to them? What have been some of the struggles they've had in their lives? We want people to be able to read it and identify with them and see how they kind of got to the place they are. We're really not happy with people whose Wikipedia pages look like they were academics that just sprung out of nowhere. You know, they were just born with a PhD or something like that. And we want to make sure we show the struggles and how maybe they were going to go into some other kind of career, but then, you know, a teacher influenced them and they went into the sciences and now they're doing this and now they're doing that. So we have done many, many Wikipedia pages. I have, you know, many examples. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to conclude for the moment. Are we taking a break or no? Like we did it, Mordialec?
We don't have to stop them.
Okay, we don't have to have everybody go. So I think I'd like to do is...
Alec has a short attention span.
Yeah. They have a bar bill they have to pay. So I really would like to have maybe some Q&A, because I'd like to see how we could go in any direction here. I can give you zillions of different examples of things. So can you get me to the internet really quickly so I can make it so that I can ask?
Let's start the Q&A and we'll see if we can get lots of it.
Oh yeah, okay, so why don't you ask me some questions that are not going to involve me finding Wi-Fi? Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know whether this will or not. Obviously, there's been a lot of fight back. I'm sure the Polish doctor has tried to do things back. How do you win those fights?
Rah. Okay, so his question is, are we getting a lot of fighting from, like, the Polish doctor Brzezinski trying to change the page back?
I mean, he must have newspaper articles of miraculous cures. I'm sure he could.
No.
No? He doesn't even
No,
have
he
that?
hasn't really got anything that he could do. What happened with Brzezinski is, and what's happened with most of the Wikipedia pages that Brzezinski might be the most extreme, because he's got a real financial motive to make sure that Wikipedia page stays in really great shape.
Mm.
So he has a lot of followers that will go in and try to edit the Wikipedia page. We have admins that don't work for our project, that we know them, and have put up a big note on the Wikipedia page for the Brzezinski page saying, if you've come here to change the Wikipedia page for Brzezinski to reflect better on him or whatever, don't even go there. Don't even try. So they've stopped a lot of people from doing it because they don't have the citations. They can't really combat what we put up there because we're quoting really great legitimate sources like USA Today did a huge expose on Brzezinski a few years ago, and they really aren't trying much. Now, they outside of Wikipedia, like the Brzezinski has a documentary or something like that, and on their documentary there's a Q&A where they say, if you've read the Wikipedia page and you have questions about why it's so abrasive towards Stan Brzezinski, this is the reason. It's because those guerrilla skeptics or those mean people won't allow us to go onto the page and change it. Because they're really aware that the Wikipedia page has a lot of negativity on it.
Let me give a different example.
Okay.
Laetrile used to have lots and lots of case studies, dubious but nonetheless case studies, and they got some publicity in California in the 60s and 70s. So something like Laetrile, they would be able to produce this newspaper article, that newspaper article.
Laetrile,
Yeah. It just doesn't happen.
It just doesn't really happen because we make the Wikipedia page so strong. Well, the pages we've been working on, they're so strong that you really can't go in and change it very easily. Because
Could
they
you
can
add
have
stuff? Could you add stuff saying, on the other hand, do we have these sources?
Yeah, in fact, we have to have criticism on pages. So if the pages, let's say, homeopathy, we have on the homeopathy page, which we didn't write, by the way, because it's already was in really great shape. It has what people say homeopathy actually does. And then it also says on there that it's nonsense. It's no better than a placebo. So that's on there clearly, but the claims that they make, they're on there. But then we have it followed up by scientific studies have shown that, this is not working because of this, and, they've done these kind of trials and so on there. But it's important to have the history on there. It's also important to have what it is they say. Because, again, people are going to go to the Wikipedia page and they want to get some kind of information. And if you're missing something on there, then they're going to say, oh, well, these people, they're just writing pages and they've taken all it off there. I'd rather have their best arguments on there and then have a response to it. I think that's more likely you're going to change more minds. You're going to have more better informed people who are reading the pages. Like a creationism argument on evolution or something like that. You've got what their arguments are, and then you should have the response pretty close to that. I haven't looked at the creation page yet lately, but I'm pretty sure that it's got, what their statement is and then the rebuttal.
Are there any pages that it's kind of been the opposite, where they've had a bit of a stronghold, and you've found it really hard to get in and change it?
That's a great question. Has there been any pages where the editors had a stronghold? And this is a good example. Joe Nickel, who will be at the conference coming up here really soon, he is really great. You'd like to quote him a lot because he does a lot of investigations. He's very detailed, and he usually has these really good one-liners, that you can sneak into the article too to kind of make it a little snarky. Oh, I'm taking this right. Edit that out. But so there was a page back in the beginning when I was just starting. In fact, when I invented the idea of doing the backwards edits, there was a woman he had written an article about called Vasula Ryden. I'd never heard of her. She was a medium who does automatic writing, and that she had all these different people who were contacting her, like St. Peter and Gabriel the angel and all these other people, and they were giving her all these uplifting messages. She would go into the house and she would write for an hour or something and come out and say, they say that everything's going to be wonderful and they love us. We just have to be good to each other, just kind of thoughts like that. So Joe Nickel had done an article about it, and one of the things he had said was that it was odd that the Archangel Gabriel and Michael and all these other people had the same spelling errors and the same syntax as each other. And he thought that was kind of odd, that they should have their own, if she's channeling them, they should have their own different way of speaking. And then he said that he would love to test her, Vasula Ryden, and he said that he was suspected that if he blindfolded her, that she would have a hard time, the spirits would have a hard time finding the lines in the paper. Because she wrote, it was neatly on the lines, but he thought that if he was to blindfold her, she would probably find that she couldn't write in the little margins like she had. So that Wikipedia page, I'd gone over and I had added some content from Joe Nickel, and it was taken off pretty quickly because she had some very fanatic fans that were really watching the page, and they took it all off. And I was pretty new. I hadn't really started the group yet. I was still just kind of learning how to edit Wikipedia. So I went into the talk page. Every Wikipedia page has a talk page. Yeah, am I on the talk page? No, I'm not on it right now. VASRYDE. And this keyboard's a little narrower than I'm used to. So here's Vasula. Whoa, what the heck is that? Oh, I can't see it well enough to do it. Can you do it for me, Chris? Can you just type for me? Vasula Ryden. VASULA. I thought Ryden. So on her talk page, Vanilla Writer.
What's happened to it?
I must have spelled it wrong. So on her talk page, I went in and I said, hey, you deleted my edit. A talk page is where they have, there she is, VASSULA. There she is, got her. So the talk page, you might not have ever noticed the talk page before, but this is where editor says she is. Dude, you can trust her. Doesn't she look like kids' messages from Jesus? So right here on the talk page, that's where editors talk to each other. And we get down and dirty sometimes about what we say. And if you're interested in anything that's going on in the media and the news these days, go check out the talk page, because that's where the information's happening. So I went over to the talk page and I said, you know, you deleted my edit. What the heck? And they said, you can't put criticism up of a person who's living, because there's strong rules about people who are living, biographical living people, you know, that kind of things. You can't put criticism up. And I said, oh yes, I can. You can't. No, I don't think so. So the editors got kind of haughty with me, and I said, I'm going to put this back up, and you know, you're going to let it go. And they said, no, we're not. You know, we can't do that. And they said, we're going to get an admin, and we're going to have somebody come in here, and they're going to tell you that you're not allowed to be putting anything critical up on a page. And I said, that's just nonsense. Of course you got to have criticism on people's pages if it's warranted and if the criticism is noteworthy. And they said, it's just your opinion anyway. I said, it's not my opinion, it's Joe Nichols' opinion. See? So I can put my opinion up, which is actually the same as Joe Nichols. And because Joe Nichols is notable and he's writing in a cited source that's a notable source, I can put the site up. So they went and they said, we're going to get an admin. I said, I'll get an admin. So I went and asked for an admin. I didn't really know what I was doing. And the admin came over and they said, not only is that edit staying, but we need more criticism on this page. And we need to take you off, because these are people who only edit one page. They're only there for one reason, for her, because, you know, she's a fan, you know, they're big fans of her and they believe her. They said, in fact, you need to stop editing this page because you are one of those editors is singly minded and is only editing this page. You're not here to improve Wikipedia as a whole. You're only out here to improve her page. So they got admonished, and I don't know if the edit stayed or not. It's been like 4 years ago, so I haven't really looked. But so yes, that was the example. That's the only page that I can think of that was a stronghold that we had to fight on. Yeah, I think that's about it. More questions? Come on now. Okay, go for it.
Alright, so what's the hierarchy? You've got someone who just edits one page and you're not supposed to do that. And then you've got people who edit lots of pages.
Are you talking about our team, or are you talking about Wikipedia editors as a
Wikipedia in
whole?
general, yeah. And
Okay.
where does the admin fit in? Who are they?
Well, there's very few people in Wikipedia who actually are employed by Wikipedia. And then underneath them, there are people who are admins. And we know a lot of admins, but I am not an admin. It's the people who really go in and enforce the rules. It's very hard to be an admin because you have to have like this long history and you have to know like everything, and your life is just completely taken up with ending disputes and things like that. And those are people who are voted on by other editors in Wikipedia. And then there's average editors who are just like anybody here in this room can go in and edit. If you have an account, your wet edit's going to weigh a little higher than a person who just goes in and edits right now without having an account, like an anonymous editor. Those people are, you know, if you go and you do something that's kind of controversial, we're kind of like, who are you and why are you editing this page anonymously? But if you have an edit history, then you look like you're here to improve Wikipedia as a whole and not just to completely edit this one person's page, which happened that was what happened on the Rupert Sheldrake page, and that's why all that controversy started. I have never edited the Wikipedia page for Rupert Sheldrake or Deepak Chopra. Nobody on my team has ever edited those pages. I think one of my editors might have edited like a grammatical error on one of them, and that was about it. But he totally blamed all the edits of his Wikipedia page on my team because we have such an aggressive name. And that kind of gave us more fame, and everybody was like, whoa, all right, you know, go Girl Skeptics. And whenever Jimmy Wells, who's the man who created Wikipedia, he came out with a statement talking about how important it is to get rid of the nonsense off of Wikipedia and on and on and on. My Facebook feed just filled up with people congratulating me. I'm like, we did nothing, you know. But I'll take the quote. Come on, give me the love, more love. But we really hadn't done anything. But you know, I guess we just had the name for it. But what happened with Rupert Sheldrake is that somebody went in and tried to make some changes on his Wikipedia page. They there was some controversy over the fact, is he really a biologist? Is he, is his degree actually notable? I don't really remember. It was something like that. And Rupert Sheldrake noticed that there was a change on his Wikipedia page, and he got very upset. So he's like this, waving his hand. Hey, you guys, stop editing my page. You're messing with my page. It's wrong. And then all these editors all over Wikipedia said, oh, what's going on Rupert Sheldrake's page? And they descended on the page, all these editors. And then what happens is you can only edit one person at a time, because then you have edit conflicts, because somebody's opened up the page, they're editing, and then somebody else tries to open up the page and they're editing, and then somebody saves the page and there's conflicts. So all these things started happening. And then Rupert Sheldrake's, yelling to his friends, and he's like, hey, people are editing my page. So they descend on it like this. And so there's just like all this stuff happening at once. Again, I got blamed for it all. And it was his own fault for making such a fuss over it. It was just some silly thing that nobody would have probably paid any attention to whatsoever, but because he made it such a drama thing, oh my gosh, the page got completely rewritten, and I guess it's not in the shape that he would like it, because it doesn't represent him very well, I guess. But they're trying to be as neutral as they possibly can, but that's I think what's happened with it in the moment. But Rupert Sheldrake's actually lecturing in America, and he was mentioning us.
What does neutral mean?
That's a good question. What does neutral mean? Well, okay, take a page like the Earth, right? The Moon. The Moon's even better. So here's a page of the Moon, and on the Moon, we went there, right? So there is no. So if you read the page for the Moon, I believe that there's no mention on there about moon hoax. I don't believe that that's on there, because they don't. But there might be a Wikipedia page devoted to moon hoaxes. Yes, there are. Now that I think about it, there is, and it has all the moon hoax, arguments and stuff like that. And then I think it has rebuttals to it. But in the media, in the normal media, I don't know if it's the same here in Australia or not, but in America, if you have somebody on who's talking about how we went to the moon and there were astronauts, they're going to try to put an equal weight on there and bring a moon hoaxer in. Even though there's zillions of evidence that we went to the moon, and there's just like this little tiny thing over here of evidence, which isn't much of evidence, down here that has that we didn't go to the moon. So they try to have this false balance in the media, and that's kind of a problem. But in Wikipedia, that rule doesn't exist. So you have to have, I'm trying to figure out how I can word this. So you can't just put an even equal thing. There are things, topics, and when it concerns pseudoscience, it's not an equal footing.
If the criterion just is that you have to be able to cite something, there's no shortage of books citing, saying that we didn't go to the moon. There's no shortage of books advocating homeopathy. So if it's just a matter of having books to cite, then there's no. How does it prevent it?
Yeah, it's a little more difficult than that, because it is a pseudoscience. Mm-hmm. When it's something that has no scientific content to it, the rules are a little bit different. It's more of the Carl Sagan, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So if somebody's going to put up, like let's say in homeopathy, they're trying to put in that homeopathy actually works. It's possible they might do a paragraph on a study that they have done. Maybe I'm thinking of acupuncture, because I believe that there's a very controversial study that was done that kind of shows that acupuncture works. So I could see that going onto the Wikipedia page, the scientific study that they did, and then underneath you would have critique of that scientific study from the community. Our community would come in and say, well, here's the problems with that study. This was a problem, they're doing cherry picking, and so on. Again, like I said, it's real important to have their argument on the page so that we can rebut it, and that way people are getting the best evidence, because that's how that works. I'm thinking of Bim. What was his name? Daryl Bim. Does that guy sound familiar to you? He had done a study on
parapsychology.
Yeah, it was something that to do with showing people pornography, and that they were supposed to remember something better if you've seen the pornography first, opposed to the people who didn't. Something like that. I might be getting my people confused, but Bim, he had this thing about thinking that you're actually going into the future a couple seconds or something like that. Well, a friend of mine, James Alcott, wrote an article on the BIM experiments in Skeptical Inquirer. In fact, it's one of these ones I was writing as I was going on an airplane. I was like highlighting things. I'm like, ooh, put this in, put this in. And he wrote that the BIM experiments were the equivalent to somebody having dirty test tubes. You know, it's just, they're contaminated. The test was contaminated. So we have the BIM experiments are written on there, and then it has our critique of the BIM experiments. So it's important to have the what they have out there, their best evidence, and then the rebuttal to the best evidence that they have.
And Bim's a very articulate, bright guy, because he had an independent area of research in psychology, which was quite legit. Mm-hmm. And then would he reply to your critiques?
No, he can't reply.
Well, because he certainly did when the critics came up in the academic journals.
Right. Well, so if he writes something, he can't actually change the Wikipedia page, obviously. So if he has done some kind of critique of the critique, put it back in, and then we'll add the other critique after that, because that's fine. And you could, but you got to find a way of summing it all up so it makes sense, because you don't want it to just be this dry, you know, scientists going after each other. You need to have it so that it reads well, and so it's interesting to read and it flows. And at a certain point, people say, "That's done." You know, it's got his study, it's got the critique, it's got his response, it's got a critique again. That's good. We're done. So that's how they'll kind of do something like that.
If someone wants to get into Guerrilla Skeptics and Wikipedia, what's the process, Susan?
Right. Okay, Chris has got a great question. If you wanted to join the Guerrilla Skepticism and Wikipedia project, which we obviously encourage you to do, especially if you speak more than one language, what I have been telling people to do lately is not to just write to me and say, "Hey, I want to join," because we find that people are a little overzealous and they don't understand what actually is going to entail. I have a YouTube channel for the GSoW, and I'm not going to give you the URL. You guys, if you want to join, you should be able to find. Should be able to do a little research. And on there, I have a lot of different interviews with my editors, and I'm talking to them. And I'm asking them, so what got you into this? What do you like about the project? What is of interest to you? What are you working on? And you can hear the passion in their voices as they're telling me about why this is so important to them and why this is just something they've been looking forward to doing for, they've been trying to find a way of getting into doing more activism and being more skeptical, and they finally found a way of doing it. They live in some places nowhere near a conference, or they live in Darwin. We have a Darwin editor now. And she's like way up there. She's nowhere near the conference areas here. So this is the perfect video for her. She has small children, so she's able to kind of, do this on her own, very intellectual. And I want people to listen to those interviews and then make the decision if this is the project for them. Because the training process can take months. I train all the English editors, and it can take a long time. We go on the time that you have. Some people pick it up really quickly, and some people are just like, okay, they're very intimidated about actually making their edits. So we'll Skype with them or something like that, and we'll do it live and help them through the different lessons. So it can take months. But once you're trained, then you're put on an editing team with other people who are like-minded as well. There's maybe 10 of you guys, and you work on the projects together that you want to work on. And then what will happen is we expect you to be on it with the project for years. So that's why I want people to make really good decisions about what they're going to, if they're going to join or not, because it's not something that, it's a commitment. And a lot of my editors are very committed to the project. They're very excited about it. I should put Monica on the spot here. Tell Monica, tell us a little bit about your thoughts of GSoW. How long have you been with the project?
I think I have been probably a year and a half. Yeah, over a year and a half.
And you found us how?
So through the podcast Skepticality, I heard an interview with Susan, and I thought that would be a great project because I really wanted to participate, to start it, like Susan mentioned before, doing some activism. And I thought because I'm really into languages, like I said, it would be a great way to combine two passions, so skepticism and languages. So I started with the idea of doing translation, but I ended up also editing straight and creating new pages in English. And of course, we get a lot of support from other team members. Of course, as a non-native English speaker, like I was a little bit intimidated. But you get a lot of support from everyone, and the other editors are more than welcome to read your page, and they always point out, oh, this doesn't sound right, or maybe I will say it like this, or we even help each other to find other sources, so everybody's aware of who is writing on what, so you always try to contribute, helping others finding other sources.
I'm going to talk about what we were talking about at the dinner just a few minutes ago. We had a project, sometimes once a year we'll try to get together and we'll have like a 6-month project. Everybody will try to work on one kind of theme. And the topic we picked just recently was vaccinations. So we spent about 5 months working on Wikipedia pages concerning vaccinations. And I'll be talking about this a little bit at the conference coming up. I worked on the page for Sherry Tenpenny. I think you guys know who she is. She's that anti-vaxxer. So if you read her Wikipedia page, I added quite a bit of content on to the tour that she was on that got canceled because of the Australian skeptics. You guys are awesome. And then I said, you know what? There's this book out there called Melody's Marvelous Measles. Anybody else heard of that?
Yes.
So that book was written in 2012 by a woman named Stephanie Messenger. And so I said, you know what, let's get a Wikipedia page for Melody's Marvelous Measles. So when you look at the Wikipedia page for Melody's Marvelous Measles, I wrote that. And, I say I wrote that, but then it's also a collaboration by all these other people. But each editor has to take, responsibility for, that's their page, and then everybody else kind of contributes. And then once it's live, anybody can edit the Wikipedia page. It doesn't have to be a GSoW editor or anything like that at all. So I wrote the Wikipedia page for the Melody's Marvelous Measles because I wanted to make sure that people were able to get the information about the page in a really good source. And when I was writing it, I didn't really know a lot about it. I found out, and this is on the page, you can read it when you get home, that, I'm going to say his name wrong. He wrote the James and the Giant Peach books. Oh, you guys are awesome. Okay, you guys are going to be on my trivia pursuit team. Okay, so he had written a book called something like Michael's Marvelous Medicine or something like that. So it was very similar to the title of Melody's Marvelous Measles. And then I started researching a little bit more, and I discovered even more that what was his name? Dahl. His daughter Olivia had died from the measles when she was like 9. And it was so tragic because they had vaccinations back then, but it was hard to get them. And he was living in England, I believe, in this 1940s, 1950s, I can't remember. So he was able to, there was like a scare of measles coming into the area, and he went and he got one dose, one thing, and they gave it to the son who was younger. Because they said, oh, the girls, and in fact, there was a letter from one of their friends, oh, the girls will be fine. It'll make them stronger or whatever, and don't worry about it. But so just give it to the younger child. So they gave the measles vaccine to the younger child, and his daughter Olivia died, and pretty much it was horrible. I mean, she was in his arms pretty much. It's just awful, awful, awful. So I found out all this as I was researching the Wikipedia page, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's got this book that she's written that's almost the same title as this guy who was really pro-vaccine, and his daughter died of the measles. It was just like a slam in his face, It just really bothered me. So when I wrote the page, I made sure I included all that in there. And then the next edit, I said, I've already done all this research on Melody's Marvelous Measles, so I wrote a Wikipedia page for Stephanie Messenger, who's the author. And I thought it's a really good idea to write the page because I want people to be able to understand the mindset of these people who are anti-vax. And I hope that comes through in the page. When you read Stephanie Messenger's page, I'm able to, I was trying to articulate you know, how her child had died, and she didn't like the diagnosis that the doctors had given her, so she just latched onto it being vaccinations, and she just, you know, and you can also see some of the other kooky ideas she kind of has, and so it kind of sums her up really well. Well, anyway, so on this vaccine project that we were doing for 6 months, Monica at the very end, she's like, I haven't contributed anything to the vaccine project, so I'm going to pick somebody off the list. And you picked somebody that you had never heard of, and her name was?
Dorit Rice.
Rice. And Dorit, she's American? Israeli-American?
Israeli-American.
Yeah, and she's a lawyer. And she specializes in, well, her idea is that, and I learned this, I never heard of her myself until I read Monica's work, that she's interested in possibly making it where you can sue somebody who has a virus and does not want to get vaccinated for it, and then they end up giving it to somebody else. The idea of making damages that you could...
She has written a lot about liabilities for parents who decide not to vaccinate their children and how it can affect the community.
Right. So she's a very interesting person. So Monica writes to the woman. We do that once we got the page written, we'll tend to write to the person who's the target, we call them targets, so that they can look it over, give us a photo, that kind of thing. So she wrote to the woman, and the lady freaked out because, you know, who writes Wikipedia pages for people? It just was out of the blue. She just was like, what is this? And she thought we might be an anti-vaxxer. She gets a lot of hate mail, apparently. So she ended up writing to somebody else who knows me. And he wrote to me and said, what the heck is going on? Are you guys working on her page? He says, that's going to be so vandalized. Oh my gosh, you guys are going to spend all your time just reverting the edits and reverting the edits. And we published the page, and we've had nothing. Nobody can revert the edits because it's so well written. There's nothing to, you can't go in and take anything out because there's nothing, it's all legitimate. It's been checked over by at least 5 people on our team. So when the page goes live, there's nothing they can complain about.
So there must be more controls than I imagined. Because I thought basically anyone can just get an account, get in there and type whatever they like. So when you say it's well written, you can't fiddle with it. Can they not just delete things and put just complete nonsense in and get away with it?
Well, if it's a page like a homeopathy or something, they have tons of people who watch it. We can put a page on a watch list. So when you sign in, you can look at everything that's been changed on your watch list. You can put hundreds of pages on your watch list, or you can put like 2 or 3 pages on your watch list. But yes, they can vandalize it, and then we could take it off in a couple seconds. There's things called bots, B-O-T, that go through Wikipedia and they search for vandalism, and they just take it off before we even know it. Most Wikipedia edits are done by robots, by bots, and so you don't notice it.
Do you have a favorite Wikipedia page?
Oh my gosh.
Or an unfavorite?
Spontaneous human combustion. And actually I use that as one of my lectures because when I'm 53, when I was growing up, we didn't have the internet. And if you wanted to know something, I mean, think about it. Go back in your mind. How would you find something? How would you know something about the paranormal? I mean, if you went to the library, well, that I'm talking about a long time ago. I was born in 62. I was born in 62. So if you wanted to know something about spontaneous human combustion, which is what I thought it was real. You know, that's when your body just lights on fire and you just. I was terrified that I was going to be.
Sort of spontaneous that on Monty Python.
Oh, were they?
And then people said, "Oh, that's actually a real phenomenon."
Well, it is. So I was frightened by spontaneous human combustion as a kid. And there was nowhere to go for information. In fact, I looked in my family's encyclopedias, and I looked, and there's like about 4 sentences, and it doesn't really mention it. It just talks about, well, that's when a body is like spontaneously catches on fire. That was about the only reference in the encyclopedia. If I had gone to the library, it would probably find something on spontaneous human combustion. It would be sensationalized. You know, fabulous stories of people who've been You know, they were just walking down the street and all of a sudden they burst into flames. And, so I was really frightened by it, and there was no way of getting any information about it. So whenever I started this project and I was going to go meet, well, I'd met him before, Joe Nickel. I was going to spend some time with Joe Nickel. We were both going to be lecturing at the same conference. And we're going to both be doing it again here in Australia. So he's got this thing about spontaneous human combustion because he's written the page. I mean, he's written some really great articles on it, and the Wikipedia page didn't reflect his articles. He always complains to people. It's like he's notorious about complaining about spontaneous human combustion. So I wanted to have the page rewritten so when I met him again, I'd say, hey, Joe, check out the spontaneous human combustion page. It's awesome now. So we rewrote it, and it's in really, really good shape, and I'm really pleased with it. You fall in love with all the pages you do. There's just no way about it. Am I right, Monica? You just...
Yeah, and also when you contact the person you have created a new page for, and you're actually communicating with them, and then you ask them to upload their photo. So it's quite exciting to finish a page and then show it to someone and saying, look what I have done, I have created.
Right, you do. You fall just like a little bit in love with each person because you're reading so much about that person. You feel like you know them, and you're trying to find all sorts of stuff. You listen to their lectures, you listen to them, we've done UFOologists and we've done cryptozoologists and all these other different kinds of things, and you're like, I kind of get where they're coming from, and you can see how their logic how they were ignoring certain things, but they're giving more weight to other things, and it's a fascinating look at their world. And I have many pages in my life that I love a lot, but spontaneous human combustion is my favorite because now there's a little girl out there who can hear about spontaneous human combustion and not be afraid of it because she could Google it and she's going to get a Wikipedia page that explains to her that this is just, sensationalized from, what was that movie, not Monty Python, I was thinking of, Spinal Tap, where the drummer was always blowing up. They went through all their drummers, they were constantly spontaneously combusting. So there's a reference to that on the Wikipedia page because we have that on there. But now, so there's other little girls and little boys out there who are going to get good information about it, and they can laugh about it. They go, oh, wow, I used to think that was real. If you'd asked your schoolhead friends, 30 years ago, and say, what's this about? You could catch on fire, you could blow up and everything, and they're like, yes, and it happened to a little girl just like you. I could see them telling, yeah, my buddy, it happened to them. They're just going to scare you.
It happened at Melbourne University after one point. Literally, like you're saying, the stuff goes by word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That you actually literally had to go to a library, which might not have been that convenient to look the stuff up.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to look it up at all.
When Wikipedia was in its earlier stages, I remember there being comparisons between it and, say, something in the chamber, and at some point, in terms of the number of errors, it became kind of similar, and I was actually surprised at how many there were in something in the chamber. How is it regarded now? Because it's still a bit of a thing, like kids doing research, don't just get all your information from Wikipedia. You need to go elsewhere.
Right.
Is it an accuracy issue, or how
It's still, pages that are scientific are actually in really good shape. Most Wikipedia pages are in really terrific shape. If you were going to look at the Wikipedia page for measles, for the actual disease, the Latin and all that other stuff and what it is, that would be probably really well written. The pages that are a problem are pages that are about our community, our peeps. Those are not in good shape, or they're non-existent. Other pages that are not really good are pages on paranormal topics. And there's a lot of psychics write their own pages.
Mm-hmm.
So as you find those, we have to go in and clean them up and delete them. They say they've been, solving crimes for the police department all the time, and they have badges and all these things, So we don't really have that. Yeah, it's not. Did I answer the question?
But it depends on the topic area.
It depends on the topic, yeah. So most pages are in really good shape. It's just kind of the fringy ones and the people who are trying to write their own pages is the problem.
So based on the fringy ones. Which ones do you stay away from?
We stay off of pages like Mormonism, Scientology, homeopathy, because those pages are already so well written. To get anything added to the page is just not easy to do. If you were going to write something and put it on the page, you'd have to go to the talk page and say, okay, there's been this really new study come out, this brand new thing, and I really think we should put it on the page. And then other editors will come in and say, oh, you know, we talked about it, and I don't think that's really a good study, and blah, blah, blah. So those pages we don't have anything to do with. And I stay away from Rupert Sheldrake. I don't want to have my fingerprints on that page. But for the most part, we only really concentrate on the scientific skepticism pages, but I don't think there's anything that we've shied away from. In fact, I just recently started working on a page of a very controversial skeptic named Al Shekel. Has anybody heard of him? He's the man who invented the Darwin fish, apparently. Very controversial, and even Jimmy Wells is getting involved in it. He just recently died, and so that's been when he sued a Wikipedia editor years ago when you could do that. And so people were very afraid to put his obit on there because it didn't look quite right. People were thinking he'd faked his death. I don't know, there's a lot of drama involved in it. Prince Phillips but I went in and edited it the other day just before I left to come here. But I don't think there's anything that and we also ask our editors to go in and edit pages that have nothing to do with scientific skepticism, because we are trying to improve Wikipedia as a whole. You know, your high school, your school, your hometown, all music group you really like, something like that. We ask them to be well-rounded and go and edit stuff that's not scientific skepticism as well.
People might say you're editing things you don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
What gives you the authority to do that? And how do you know you're accurate about something you haven't learned about before?
It's a good question. So there are a lot of people in the skeptic community that believe that we shouldn't be editing Wikipedia pages unless we have a PhD in the subject. There's actually a lot of people who believe that the Wikipedia is not accurate because the PhDs haven't gotten in there. And it's like, okay, well, I'll sit here and wait until you go do that, Mr. PhD person. Oh, it looks like it's not getting done. I guess we better get somebody over there to take care of it. Well, you don't have to be an expert on the page. You kind of become an expert in a lot of ways. Like Monica says, you read and you do so much about them, and everything's there in citations. It's what would you say, Monica? I don't think you really have to have. You really don't need to be, because you're writing the page for people who are not experts. I'm not going to touch a page on measles, on the scientific stuff on measles. Definitely not going to touch it. That's another page I wouldn't touch. Anything like that, anything that has to do with math. But I can write about a mathematician. I can write about a book on mathematics, and I have. I just recently wrote a page for a guy named Jim Baggett, who wrote about a popular book on the Higgs boson. He also wrote about, he's got a new book out right now on calling it fairy tale physics. Things like string theory and all that kind of stuff is just kind of like a fairy tale, and it's never going to be proved, and we've spent 30 years or something like that. I know nothing about the Higgs boson or string theory, but I kind of had to become a little bit of an expert on what he thinks about it, because I was writing the page for him. So it sounds, our group, we've had some controversy at the beginning. People were like, what's this World of Skeptics going to do? What are they doing? But it sounds really bad, and it sounds harder than it is, but actually just kind of works. It kind of just, we haven't had any problems, and it just kind of works out okay. You just kind of find a way of doing it.
And Susan, can I add something? I think also you learn how to identify your sources. So as long as your sources are good, even if you're not an expert, but you know that you're getting it from a reliable source, then you can be confident that you can put it there. And also other editors, we help each other, and then sometimes every now and then I have added something, and other editors have told me maybe don't use that source because maybe it's not reliable enough, and then they help me find another one.
Right. Very good. And you know, going back to your question over here about why is it that we can't? What about the scientific journals for the paranormal community? Why can't we just cite them? The problem is that they've been the scientific journals for the paranormal community are not considered good citations because they don't have a good oversight as far as the editors and so on. So what happens is a lot of these journals get on like a blacklist.
There's actually an official,
Yeah, people will say like we can't use the Examiner. I don't know if you have the Examiner over here. It's a like an online news site that people just like Joe and Fred and John will just go and they become a reporter and they just put out. It's like a blog, but it's got the name the Examiner, and so that's a site that looks like it would be official, but it's like blacklisted and you can't use their sites.
Like the Society for Psychic Research, which is well a century and a half old and started by C.D. Broad was there, and there was a whole series of major academics. Would that be also not prohibited?
I'd have to look, but I have
Okay.
a feeling that it's probably not considered reputable. There's reasons, and they're not rules that I decide.
Yeah.
Other editors who have much more history in this kind of thing, they are the ones that kind of decide this is a source that you cannot use. Traditionally, it has to be noteworthy. A person has to be noteworthy in order to be able to use their opinion. And what noteworthy means is, do they have a Wikipedia page? Because you have to be noteworthy to be able to have a Wikipedia page, and then you just can't quote some guy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. I mean, obviously you probably go after the most well-known of opponents, but do you sometimes ever run into the problem that somebody you wanted to write a page for is actually not very notable?
It's a really good question. I believe there's somebody here in Australia named Fred that you guys have an award for who's died. Right. So, no, the one that died, the award's named after. Yeah. See, you guys know who he is from Tasmania. I'm going to Tasmania on Saturday. So, okay, for example, do you guys have heard of the podcast Skeptics Guide to the Universe? He's like, yeah. So, do you remember a man named Perry DeAngelis? Okay. So Perry DeAngelis is the guy behind the SGU and the reason why Stephen Novella kind of got away from the Dungeons and Dragons game and actually started the group that he did. So Perry DeAngelis has died in 2007, but he was a quite interesting person. So I decided I wanted to write a Wikipedia page for Perry DeAngelis, but there wasn't enough citations. There wasn't enough oomph to be able to make the Wikipedia page for Perry DeAngelis. I had to find a couple real sources like newspaper articles, and he had like 2 newspaper articles. One was in the New York Times and one was something else. Those 2 citations were enough to write a Wikipedia page for him. If that's all I had, it would be just a little stub. It'd be just a really dry, boring page. So what I did is, because I had those 2 news sources, I knew I could get away with this. It was going to be really close. Then I went to TAM, and I go to TAM often, and I know the novellas and all that. And we sat down, Stephen Novella and Evan Bernstein, 2 separate interviews, and we interviewed him. I interviewed him. I said, so, tell me about Perry DeAngelis. And I had a list of questions of things I wanted to put on the Wikipedia page written out so that we could ask him, like, what was his early life like? What's his family like? And that kind of thing. And so because they're telling me all these things and they're the experts on Perry DeAngelis because they were really good friends of his, I was able to upload those videos to YouTube, turn around and cite them. So I've done that many times. So I'm creating the pages. So this man, Fred, I'm kind of intrigued. I'm wondering if we could do the same thing for him. Because everywhere I go and everywhere I've talked to people, he seems to have had a lot of emotion associated with him. People were like, this guy was great, he was just this fabulous person, but I doubt there's going to be a lot of citations for him, but maybe if I could find 1 or 2, and then use interviews to go ahead and make the page for him himself. So you guys got to check out Perry DeAngelis' page. He was a fascinating guy, and another person I fell in love with. You know, you're just listening to it, and you're like, wow, this guy's great. I guess Chris is going to.
Oh, looks like another question over there.
You mentioned just in passing that you used to be able to sue a Wikipedia editor and can't now. What
Yeah.
if I simply put a libel against a person? Can I be sued?
No.
So
You can't.
pedophilia or whatever the accusation I can make.
No, not necessarily. I think what ended up happening with the case that I was talking about, and I didn't realize that this is what was going on, is these two people had gone at it before, and I guess they'd had some kind of court case before, and they had agreed never to write something in defamation against the other person. And so this one guy went into Wikipedia and put something negative about him, and so the guy sued him back. So I didn't realize that until like a couple days ago, that that's the reason why he got sued. It wasn't because he put something negative on Wikipedia. It was because he had a court order saying that you will never say anything negative about me, and he ended up writing it on the Wikipedia page. So
But in general, there's no.
you can't do it. You can't get rid of. You can't sue a Wikipedia editor. You can try. We'll just laugh in your face because we're not. The edit can be removed in seconds. And if you try to sue a Wikipedia editor, then you're going to get all this media attention to you. In fact, it happened in Europe somewhere. Some guy, some prince or something, somebody put something negative on his Wikipedia page, and he went to the media saying, "This is just wrong," and people descended on the story, and it just made him look really bad, and the story that he was trying to hide became massive because he was trying to repress it, because we all love that kind of stuff, right? Somebody trying to repress a story.
Is that the same as the Streisand effect?
What was it? Streisand. It's like, yes, it is a Streisand effect. There's a Wikipedia page for the Streisand effect, by the way.
And Barbara up the back has a question too.
I'm going back to something you said. Back in 1970s, I was very much into health.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe the spontaneous human combustion was, if you weren't healthy, for instance, the pH balance. If the pH balance, if you're not 10% acid and 90% alkaline, that you could combust. That's how I saw it.
So you, like me, you didn't really have a way of checking that information. It's like something in your mind. I thought I'd just be, I don't know, running too fast and I got all hot or something and I just burst into flames.
No, I thought you had to
It's
be
the
unhealthy.
phosphorus.
The phosphorus. So now there's a place you can actually go to find that the mystery has been solved and it's been broken down into some really well, you know, it makes sense when you read the page. And I really encourage everybody here to go and read the Wikipedia page for spontaneous human combustion. Tonight you're going to be like, okay, I got to sit down and read this before I go to bed tonight. Your family's going to be like, okay.
Okay, thanks a lot, Susan. That was, I think we've had a pretty productive conversation coming out of that. And we've got a fairly clear understanding of
I hope so.
what goes on. Now, you've left your pile of cards over there if people are interested in contacting you about the project. And that's one of your selfies, isn't it?
It's a selfie.